Right. Welcome to With All Due Respect. Political season, coalition building, or collisions, if you like. That's all been happening this weekend, and we're getting to that very close period of the nominations. Both coalitions trying to pick up the last pieces and make sure they're ready for that very all-important electoral period. In studio tonight, I have Kiharu MP, Ndindi Nyoro, karibu sana to the program. And I do have also Peter Kaluma, Homa Bay Town MP.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Not Homa Bay Village, Homa Bay Town.
Homa Bay Town.
Yeah, asante.
There's a difference. All right. I want, gentlemen, to pick your thoughts first for what has happened today, which has occupied the news pieces today, which is Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and his claims for 2022 elections. I want to play a small bit of what he said this evening, especially to us, to form the basis of our conversation tonight. Let's listen to Kalonzo Musyoka.
Mazungumzo yameanza. Sasa irreducible minimum, soma hiyo document ambayo nimekupatia. Utapata kwamba irreducible minimum ni kwamba my brother Raila Odinga, by honoring this document, will pronounce his brother the flag bearer for Azimio Oka. Everything is discussable, everything is on the table, and what I've just given you today will form the basis of future negotiations.
All right, the future of future negotiation. Let me start with you, Mheshimiwa. This is close home. I mean, Ndindi, would have his thoughts, but what do you read from Kalonzo's mood today and what he said today? Is it new?
I never discuss, people who have worked with my party leader, Raila Odinga, and so I'll be a bit restrained. I don't think there is anything new. You remember just the last weekend, we had so many national delegates conventions of various parties. He sent Bwana Makwere, who came to the ODM delegates convention at Kasarani and confirmed they were in Azimio. Before that, His Excellency Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka was at the Jubilee National Delegates Convention at KICC, something like that. And you remember, he also confirmed at that point in time that not just Wiper, but Oka too was joining Azimio. And before that, you remember the press conference, James, which Kalonzo read on behalf of all the Oka members, with them seated there, in which, again, he was unequivocal. He said they are in Azimio. So what I see the Vice President doing is beginning negotiations as people march into Azimio. And it is to that extent that, with due respect, I would say it's a bit premature. The fact of the matter is that we have all gone into Azimio as confirmed by him and other, One Kenya Alliance members, and we are now going into the details. When we had our national delegates convention at Kasarani, you remember what we did as the Orange Democratic Movement. We said we now have given or elected Raila to be our presidential candidate, but we are releasing him to go and compete with others within Azimio. So I imagine Kalonzo has started negotiations for presidential ticket in Azimio in earnest. I would, of course, not agree with the manner he's approaching it, because if that is what he's doing, then he should do it in that club to which they belong and to which the general public do not sit. Okay,
Ndindi, you might have, not the same interests as Kaluma, but what did you read of today's, happenings with Kalonzo?
I read Kalonzo's statement, and especially on social media, on his Facebook post. And I think Kalonzo was more or less referring on 2017 agreement that they had with the former opposition leader, that is Tinga. And I think reading through his script, he's talking about trust and betrayal, because there was an agreement. I'm not part of NASA. I have never been part of NASA. So I'm just talking on what I read and what has been in the public domain, that the 2017 NASA presidential candidate was to sit ground in 2022 in favor of Kalonzo. But unfortunately, that has not happened. But I think even reading the mind of Kalonzo, and because I am also in parliament with most of his supporters, I think they are grudge mostly around NASA and the whole coalition, and it's actually coming down, is from the handshake. Because they fought as a team in 2017, but unfortunately, when the former Prime Minister went to negotiate with the President Uhuru Kenyatta, he put his personal interest first, and he forgot that he was elevated by the team even to garner the kind of votes that he garnered, and therefore he forgot about them. So I'm reading betrayal and trust issues, but of course, as I said, I've never been part of NASA, and I've never been part of that that arrangement. So I'm just referring to what is in the public domain.
Whose public domain?
I think it's been there. So, but how to progress is in this sense, though.
Yeah, James.
On the trust and deficit, I want to speak on the trust and deficit because
I'll go there. I think Raila is the most trustworthy, politician to engage with. You listened to Kalonzo, and I did not, listen to his entire speech. And first, he breached to me a fundamental, principle when you go into private arrangement between parties. You've never seen Raila say this was an agreement. And you see His Excellency Vice President saying it was not to be disclosed, but I'm disclosing it. For what purpose? You remember NASA is essentially dead because the team that led the troop out of NASA were initially, Kalonzo and the team, Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula. And then the ODM team also walked out. But you remember the point where Kalonzo was looking at what he called the articles of agreement. He said agreement number 1. In agreement number 2, he was saying, and he read it, Raila was to serve 1 term. And then
one term of what?
Yes, 1 term. That is it. Raila, what do you serve as a presidential candidate? As a president.
So that
Raila was to serve 1 term, and he read it word for word. We've not seen it ourselves. This was an agreement between him and Raila. And they signed an agreement which he read to the public today, and I'm only taking the bit read. Raila was to serve for 1 term, and then endorse him publicly in 2022, as Raila served 1 term. So when you see Kalonzo, the senior counsel, saying Raila should support him, I think I fault him in terms of how he's interpreting that provision as a lawyer. Raila has not served 1 term. But number 2, the NASA coalition as itself, collapsed. And now Musalia Mudavadi, Wetangula are with, William Ruto the other end, the yellow necktie. Raila is with Azimio. In Azimio itself, James Matt, there are so many parties beyond, NASA. You have Jubilee coming in. You have Kanu coming in. Jubilee is no longer a coalition. One part of the coalition was sacked from the party in the National Delegates Convention.
We want to come to that.
Yeah, we will come to that later. But you saw all these ones who have been calling themselves the Tanga wing of Jubilee being kicked out. So Jubilee is now a pure, party. And you've seen they have rebranded. Now they have a very white, beautiful dove as a symbol of peace somewhere in the middle there. Not that yellow, handshake they had, whatever they were calling it. Now, the fact of the matter is that beyond not being, right in his interpretation of that, literal provision he read, article number 2, is taking himself out of the fact that Azimio is now a convergence of so many parties beyond himself and Raila. Okay. Jubilee may be laying a stake to the presidency.
You're going ahead. You're going ahead. I want to go systematically because we have to deal with the other question of what happened over the weekend, which was what you said, quote unquote, the sacking.
No, you wanted me to address the issue of trust.
Yes. Well, I'm coming to that.
Yes.
But I want Ndindi first to also respond on the question of Jubilee as a political party or Jubilee as a coalition and what happened over the weekend as a question of trust, because the problem appears to be the handshake. That is the genesis of the problems.
James, from where I come from, Jubilee that used to be a party is no more. Actually, we refer to it as past tense. Actually, the more pronounced Jubilee now, there is a company that makes feeds for our animals. It is actually more pronounced in terms of Jubilee than the one that used to be the political party. But first of all, I want to prosecute the issue of trust, because as you've heard my colleague trying to articulate the issues around the NASA coalition agreement, and I said it is a matter in the public domain because you have all read about it, that the former Prime Minister was actually to run in 2017. And whatever the outcome, he was to support now another principle in the name of Kalonzo Musyoka. But even besides that, I think the issue is more about trust, because even the handling thereafter of NASA and the political parties' money is in dire question, because of course they shortchanged the other coalition partners, and it has been in the public domain. But also, the handling of the handshake goodies. We saw when the former Prime Minister went to our president, anything that he milked from that handshake actually went to him personally, and probably the region that he preferred. And therefore, there is a lot of other currents across the other regions. I've been in Ukabani, so to say, the bedrock of Kalonzo Musyoka and Wiper. And there is a lot of other currents around how the Prime Minister handled them thereafter. Every goodie that was gotten from the handshake.
Where did it go?
In terms of the development, even in terms of the political party's money. I mean, there is direct deficit of trust around the entire arrangement. And I am very surprised that the former Vice President would even entertain a thought of going back to where his figure was beat. And I don't think it would be reasonable for anyone around the Wiper to go back to that arrangement.
Are they going to be safe with UDA? Would you suggest that?
You know, what we are doing smart, and I wish the other parties can borrow from us. We have realized from 2002 that this issue of siasa in a dark room, in a private room, a few men sitting down and brokering deals, is never in the interest of the public. And actually, you have changed the entire arithmetic. As UDA and the Kenya Kwanza, what we are doing, and we started with Nyeri, we went to Meru, we have seen that this maneno of having a kingpin there, another kingpin there, bringing ethnicities together to craft a winning formula is never in the interest of the Kenyan people. And therefore, we are going on the direct issues. And the coalition we are making, even beyond the parties that are within Kenya Kwanza, the real coalition we are making is with the people of Kenya. For example, our leader was in Nyeri the other day, and we spent an entire day, not the PR exercise that we usually see in other parties. We are going to listen, and after listening, polishing up our agenda, so that even as we talk about the politics and some few men here and there, we first talk about what issues do we want to execute. Real issues around farmers, real issues about the economy, because they matter more than this leader getting this position and the other one getting the other position.
Okay.
And actually, referencing on what you are talking about, NASA, you can clearly see that politics of dark room, politics of private rooms, a few men meeting in boardroom, the consequence, what follows, is brinkmanship and conmanship, as we have seen in the entire NASA arrangement.
Is that what's happening?
James, you know, I'm older in the political space to Ndindi Nyoro. Ndindi, I know Ruto better than you. And I wish beyond the camera you'd ask me who he is. You are talking things he's not. He is the least person you can trust with anything. James, the fact of the matter is that when you are talking about NASA matters, it should be me in the know, and not Ndindi's imaginations.
We will flip and talk about UDA
being spewed here. The fact of the matter is that you've heard it being said, and we have restrained ourselves as the former big brother in NASA from talking to our, small brothers in NASA then, or even to responding. But a time is now coming when we will respond. You've heard him talking about the sharing of the political party's fund. Maybe because he's not a lawyer, with due respect, my brother, you do not understand it. But the political party's fund is shared by the registrar of political parties. And there are two ways of going about it. First is the collective presidential vote a candidate or coalition of parties, gets. And you remember, James, when we were done with the elections in 2017, there was a petition lodged in the name of Kalonzo Musyoka and Raila Odinga as petitioners at the Supreme Court. The result of that petition was to nullify the election results.
Right.
You remember?
Right.
And then a fresh election was called which was boycotted by the then NASA brigade. I know you remember what happened in Western Kenya, Nyanza, even in Lower Eastern, the bedrock of Wiper. They boycotted the elections. When we settled back to Parliament, the ODM party, through our candidate, demanded our portion of the political parties fund. And we demanded it based on the votes that accrued in the first election. And the Registrar of Political Parties took the position that no, those results were nullified on your own petition. And then, you know, James Matt, the Registrar of Political Parties, was right. Now, that left us to the second criterion in terms of how you share the money. And then the registrar determined that in that case, you go by the number of leaders elected under the party, in that political party.
Right.
And we took up the challenge as lawyers within, you know, NASA and ODM then. The matter went up to the Supreme Court on interpretation. These are things you don't tell people. And we were saying, if you're now going to go by the number of leaders elected in the parties, so that we are fair, we were a coalition, let us have the leaders elected also in Wiper, in Ford Kenya, in, you know, the former ANC, also counted as a block so that the money comes and we share it out to them. Okay? The registrar took the position, which is the position to date, that at that level we are only paying the political party. So the money that is going to ODM is strictly on ODM elected leaders. But even on that, yes, even on that, James Matt, yes, even on that, Raila still bent backwards. And when there was little money now being given, you know, we've not reached a level where, in fact, the ODM party is out of 8 billion, following even court orders. We reached the level of even saying the little monies we get, we give them.
How much is little?
Yeah, but you see, sometimes we get in a whole year 100 million, sometimes 140 million, but it took a very long time. But even that, if Kalonzo were honest with you, he'll tell you, Raila, though this is strictly on the ODM elected leaders, we give the money. So there can be no issue of...
I want clarity on this. Yes. The money, your position is the money that is being shared, it's ODM's money, and it's out of ODM magnanimity to give Wiper part of
in
that
fact,
money. Is that your position?
You can consult the registrar on that. He'll confirm to you that is the position. And we even requested Wiper and these parties to join us in the battle so that they can be counted. But they said, you are not a political party within the framework of the law then. And James, this is the reason as to why we brought the amendments to the Political Parties Act, the recent ones, you remember.
I want to come to that.
Where we lowered the criteria for parties to benefit, and we said the registrar for any party that qualifies will send the money straight to them. Ndindi is talking about them, but they were opposing even those.
Okay.
So there is no trust issue. What I would say is that we are now in Azimio.
Yes.
Let His Excellency Vice President Kalonzo go and negotiate with all contestants under Azimio for presidential ticket. Let us not, you know, reach a level where we are, you know, misinterpreting agreements and pulling back one another.
I want to go on a break. Ndidi, do you accept that? 30 seconds very quickly. Do you accept that position?
Well, of course no, because as you've heard my colleague describing, they get some portion in terms of, or based on the presidential numbers they got.
No presidential number.
There are two categories or two criteria. And of course the second criteria. What he's not talking about is that wherever they reached as the NASA coalition, wherever they reached as the ODM, was the synergy with the other parties.
Okay.
And it is out here, after receiving, the previous money they received was around 165 million. They shortchanged all their other partners.
No, you don't
and
understand.
It's not just about the political parties' funds, across board.
Yes.
Whatever thing they have gotten from the handshake and coming forward, they have always shortchanged
James,
their
I've
partners
not spoken on the
and
handshake.
the people who were actually the pillars
who
supported them to reach where they are.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to the handshake next.
But
I want to take a short break.
But we need to talk about these so-called benefits, which we don't know.
When we come back,
I hope you'll allow me to address them.
With all due respect,
yes,
we're taking a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about that handshake and what happened over the weekend, the convention, whereby some things were said, some interesting things were in the public domain. We want to put them to rest tonight. With all due respect, take a short break. We'll be right back.
At the first sign of pain, you need a solution that you can trust. Try Panadol Advance. With Panadol's Optizode formula, the tablet absorbs quickly and starts providing fast and effective pain relief you can trust. Try Panadol Advance.
The First Lady.
Look, I am not going to waste my time nor my space on the newspaper printing a picture of the new assistant of Leonardo Santander. For goodness sake, Adolfo, who cares?
What do you mean, who cares? Everybody cares. Can't you see that Paloma is now the woman behind the president?
You have never really cared about what's been important to me. Never. That's why, for my sake, it is really comforting to find people like Paloma that believe in me. I'm going to work with that woman, Christina, whether you like it or not. Already settled and done.
6-7 games, cinema, games.
I'm really proud of what I've achieved and the me I've become.
Angela Okutoi of Kenya, like the Serena Williams of the US.
The plan was to reach the quarters, whereas I was one match away to achieving it.
Very difficult for her to practice with the girls that we have because the level is tremendously high. She practices with the Davis Cup players who are actually men and not even boys.
I would like to congratulate Angie once again for bringing glory to the name of Kenya, which is well known as being an athletic country.
If I have made it, you can also make it.
Right, welcome back with all due respect. Over the weekend, there were several NDCs, conventions everywhere. It was raining conventions from here to heaven. But interesting things were said. And most importantly, the president speaking his mind on what formed the collapse between him and his deputy. Let's take a listen to refresh our minds on what exactly happened over the weekend.
Nilikuwa ODM. Na nikafukuzwa ODM, nikapelekwa kotini. Sasa wale nataka niwaambie, hamuwezi kunifukuza ODM, ati mkanifuata, ati mnanifukuza Jubilee. Haiwezekani.
Ukijifukuza, jistaki wewe mwenyewe ni kwa sababu gani ulijifukuza, lakini usiseme kuna wengine ambao wamekufukuza. Umefukuzwa kwa sababu ya tamaa badala ya kutuliza tamaa.
All right. This is it. This is the real crux of the matter. Let me start with you. Because for a long time, your side of political, the Jubilee Coalition Party, held the view that, you know, you're being pushed away from your party. But the president, in front of everyone, said you guys pushed yourself out. What is the real situation on the ground, if you like?
You know, Smart, and I'm sure the reason why you couldn't play the clips of the president speaking in Sagana is basically because even in this studio, probably I could be the only one who could interpret to many of you, because he was using our local language. And I'm still speaking with I'm starting with Sagana before I come to KICC. You know, the entire community was apprehensive before the Sagana 4 or whatever number of Sagana
3.
Because we had been promised that the president is coming to spill beans, he's coming with a bombshell, he's coming to explain to the region why they are no longer working together and in tandem with his deputy president. But unfortunately, you know, many times, Smart, I don't listen to the president because most times he comes out very angry and sio kitu mzuri ya kusikiza kila wakati. But this time, I decided to listen from the first word to the last, to hear what is it that made the president to part away from or to part with his deputy president. And the entire community listened. We listened, we never had anything in substance on the reason why they are no longer working with the deputy president the way they used to work before. The insinuations he could give was around Kimwarel and Aro, and around corruption. And most people, and I'm speaking on behalf of the majority of the people from the region, we are, lost in the wilderness, listening to the president, because he's the commander-in-chief. He came lamenting about corruption in his government, yet we know for sure from the region, most of the corruption and most of the funds have been stolen from his government actually in this second term. And therefore, there was no substantive reason that the president gave why he's no longer working with his deputy. On the other side, he talked about his brother, his handshake brother, and the reason why they are working together and they continue working together. And the only point he gave is that they came up with the handshake ostensibly because there were chaos after the 2017 general elections, and the only way to bring about peace was going for his brother, that is Tinga. And the only other reason that he gave why he's supporting him is because when you support him and he becomes president, then we are not going to witness any more violence in Kenya. Smart, I want to be very categorical. As the people of Mount Kenya region and as the people of Kenya, we cannot reward violence, chaos with presidency, because there is no other reason the president gave. But the more pronounced statement that the president made in Sagana was around our clergy, and he really belittled our clergy. And actually, I want to advise my brother Kaluma, because they used to joke there in parliament that when the president comes to Sagana and speaks in our local language, yote inaendelea kubadilika. I want to tell Kaluma, ni ukweli yote ilibadilika. Lakini ilibadilika. Those people who had not made up their mind to support the deputy president actually made up their mind last week.
Okay.
That they are going out to support him.
James, what was the question to Ndindi? Because I'm no longer able to follow him.
Because following the president's speech, he actually said nothing of consequence in regards to why the people of Mount Kenya region should not support the candidate of their choice.
I want to answer this question with clarity, because the president went on, I think, twice speaking about the handshake. That one, his deputy was aware of his meetings and his dealings with Honorable Raila Odinga. He was aware all this time. And for some reason, his deputy was uneasy with that and started distancing himself politically from him.
You know, I cannot come here to second-guess the president because it is his word against his deputy. Unfortunately,
but he has said it before when the deputy is seated.
I'm not his deputy. And following the events of the handshake up to where we are, when the president came up with the handshake, the first statement he made is that the handshake has nothing to do with the 2022 politics. But unfortunately, what you are witnessing now is that there was double speech around the handshake. It was choreographed. The entire handshake was to come to BBI. After BBI, it was to come to 2022. So the entire arrangement was around the same politics I talked about, politics of betrayal, where ukivuka the other side, you totally forget the other people who supported you to get to where you are. And I think there is very little difference between what we were discussing about NASA and betrayal and the president and his deputy and 2022 altogether.
James, Ndindi speaks and will speak until morning without responding to the matters you are asking. This is the difficulty debating this Tanga or UDA team, that they don't respond to issues. Ndindi, let me tell you some things as your senior in politics. President Kenyatta took the leadership of Mount Kenya in the month of January 2008, when Mount Kenya people were being killed, more so in the Rift Valley. Do you know what I'm talking about? That is when he took over leadership of Mount Kenya. And India, I can tell you, whatsoever level of leadership you want to accord to the president, he remains the leader not only of Kenya, but of the mountain. And I'm just, alerting you to the fact that if for any reason you take what the president is saying to the people of Mount Kenya lightly, then the consequences are there, and they are very loud. You remember, James, a short while back, we were being told Raila cannot move from the boardrooms and go into the mountain. Raila has gone to the mountain. Raila now sleeps in the mountain. We were being told then, look, you cannot even get 5%. We've had several interviews with them, not only in this station, but in others too. It went to 10%. They admit to 20%.
What numbers?
Now they are saying it is over 30%. I can tell you, Ndindi, being a leader is about being followed. and don't take it lightly, that the president enjoys followership, that the noise UDA and William and you people are making noise there may not sway it. So things are changing, and changing, you know, positively. James, let me say something about, you know, this thing, you know, we call, you know, handshake, and the many things is spoken to in this rub of statements. Raila never shook hands with President Kenyatta for anything, but for stability. And the fact of the matter, James, is that I was in the last parliament. And I want to request you, my brother, to look at the Public Accounts Committee reports in the last parliament. James, that is the time our foreign debts moved from 1 trillion, about 3 trillion left by Kibaki, cumulative since independence to that point, to 5.9 trillion. The fact of the matter is that there was a moratorium. In this term now, repayment is there, okay? And we are now burdened by what happened in the previous term. If you remember the previous term, Ndindi, every time we were negotiating about debt, or we were debating a matter, bill or a motion concerning the debt ceiling, the deputy president would come from nowhere and sit somewhere, patch himself at the gallery there, you know, and it was a time of tyranny of numbers, you remember. So MPs in Jubilee would just pass these things, and we were being deemed as a nuisance. James, you remember the statements like every debt we take is well planned, not coming from Uhuru, but from the deputy president. It is in the first term also, contrary to these many things they say, that more than half of these debts we were taking were being stolen. And
this is a point of contestation on where exactly did we go wrong? Is it in the first term or the second term?
No. James, I'm the one talking, and Ndindi, you spoke. Let me speak.
Okay.
Let me speak.
Okay. 1 minute. One minute. Yes.
James.
Yeah. Finish.
You cannot ask such a question when you are at NTV. Those records are there. Those records are there. I mean, when I tell you Kibaki left his seat as president with, you know, 5.9 trillion. It is there. When I tell you, Kibaki left at 1.3.
Yes.
And, you know, the first term of Jubilee administration left it at 5.9 trillion. It is there. And by the way, it preoccupied our debates, even in this studio, in the first term. Why is this debt going through?
Okay.
James, when we talk about corruption in the first term, are you forgetting the deputy president even, you know, get crashing into a presidential function at Supreme Court and saying we only lost if we would lose only 7 billion in Aurora and Camorer? Do you remember Eurobond? Do you remember all those mega corruption cases? When were they?
Yes.
What we are saying is that the deputy president, and this is what I wanted to end with. James was responding to him. Where on earth do you see a deputy president in the mold of William Ruto? I mean, even in the United States, we had President Trump, whom we had problems with. Did you remember his polished vice president anywhere? This is a deputy president. You're saying, let us work.
I need to give...
Correct. No, you've given him a lot of time.
No, you've been speaking this in the entire second. So I need you to hang on. You need to respond.
Okay.
James, yes. You know, I have a lot of respect for my colleague, Kaluma. He's my big brother there in parliament. But unfortunately, he comes here shouting how he is second term and lecturing us how he is a second term member, and the reason why actually I'm sitting ground for him to speak more. But unfortunately, I've never seen a person who is in his second term in parliament who has actually even no grasp of figures, the figures he actually adjudicates and makes there in parliament.
Give us the figures.
What we do in parliament, smart, is mostly the economic angle of our country. And it is laughable to hear that Honorable Kaluma speaking about the debt that Kibaki left. Let me speak, please.
No, give us the figures. Give us the figures.
I'm not used to this shouting. Give me time to execute my point. Let me now educate you a little, Mheshimiwa Kaluma. Because you claim to be in government, and I thought being in government, you have access to direct raw data.
But
from
James,
the Central Bank of Kenya,
James, where did I say that?
Yes. From the budget office in parliament, and from any other quarter. Now, take a pen and paper. President Kibaki, when he left power in 2013, the public debt of this country, both domestic and foreign, was 1.8 trillion Kenya shillings. That data, you can get it even now.
I'm talking
from
of
the
foreign
central
debt.
bank.
How much was foreign debt?
Can you
hang on? Let him
No,
listen to this point.
Let me speak.
Yes.
But James,
I've told you
I'm
to
following
pick
the numbers.
a pen
I'm
and
following
paper.
the
If you don't have a
numbers.
paper,
Yes.
let me
I'm following.
educate you for free. Right there.
You can.
When President Kibaki left
yeah.
in 2013, the foreign and domestic debt in this country was 1.8 trillion Kenya shillings on 50-50 basis. So even the argument he's making about what he was referencing, the domestic debt was actually half of that. So just around 3.9, there about trillion. In 2017 December, you can check that from Central Bank, the national debt in this country, the public debt, was 4.5 trillion Kenya shillings in December of 2017. That makes the net borrowing of the first term of President Kibaki and Uhuru Kenyatta, of Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, to be net borrowing of 2.7 trillion Kenya shillings. Now let me shock you. We adjusted the limits of borrowing in Parliament up to 9 trillion Kenya shillings. And unfortunately, as we talk here, James, is that our country and our economy has borrowed even more than the limits we have set in Parliament. These are the figures. The direct debt borrowed by this handshake regime is currently cumulative, is just around 8.5 trillion Kenya shillings. Then you add something we call guarantees. Guarantees come from Kaluma. PPPs are guaranteed by national debt. There is something else called guarantees. Guarantees, for example. Let me give you an example. When Kenya Power takes a debt, the guarantee of that SOE, state-owned enterprise, is the government of Kenya. That again is around 3.4 trillion Kenya shillings. The entire total debt in this country is just shy of 12 trillion Kenya shillings. The handshake regime has borrowed a net of 7.2 trillion Kenya shillings. Let me come closer home. President Kibaki, when he left, given our population, we had a per capita debt of around 48,000 Kenya shillings. Currently, through the handshake quagmire, every Kenyan, including a young child born in Murang'a Hospital today, has a debt per capita of around 255,000 Kenya shillings. And we are in deep hole borrowed by this regime. But even, allow me to execute this.
Yes.
Let me give you a few figures.
James,
Please, let me
for how long do we listen to these lies?
Let me tell you something. The first term of President Uhuru Kenyatta's borrowing, we can see, we can touch. Out of the 2.7 trillion net borrowing of the first term, you can go and see the railway. There are real projects you can touch. This second term, this handshake regime, there is nothing substantive you can pinpoint that has been done by that borrowing. And so that Kenyans understand. Just allow me 1 minute. I'll give Kaluma all the time he needs. Allow me 1 minute.
Finish.
How much can the debt that the President Uhuru Kenyatta and his handshake brother
still useful for me to engage?
Can I just execute my point?
Finish. 30 seconds, please.
I want to speak. I want to speak lighter language for the Kenyan people to understand, because we are throwing trillions here and there. I want to bring the point closer home.
Do I go and watch these lies for more?
Hang on. 30 seconds.
I am from violence. Let me execute my point.
I'm too senior.
Are you the one interviewing us or him?
No. I'm too senior to say being lied to.
Okay, 30 seconds.
But for how long?
30 seconds.
Is this 30 seconds?
Okay, let him speak.
Okay, no, finish your point.
I'll speak once he's a speaker.
You see, it's consistent.
You cannot,
James,
you cannot control the debate. I'm not speaking when you're
about the numbers. Okay, hang on.
But you cannot speak. You cannot speak until morning.
Okay, let him execute his point. Finish your point.
And speak facts so that we engage.
You'll respond. Make your point. Finish your point.
Let me bring the debate closer home. From the trillions to real issues affecting the people of Kenya. The handshake regime has borrowed a net of 7.2 trillion shillings.
Yes.
What can that money do? I want to make this debate understandable to the Kenyan people who are watching us. When President Kibaki left the helm of power, the president currently claims that he has tarmacked around 10,000 kilometers of road. 10,000 kilometers of road, an average cost of tarmacking road in Kenya is around 60 million per kilometer. James Matt, discount all of that. Make it actually 20,000 kilometers of road. That makes around 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings. When President Kibaki left, we had connections to electricity of around 1.8 million households. The current data, let me finish. This one point.
James, for how long
the households in Kenya are around 12 million households. So if you are to connect all the households to the national grid,
so your point is,
just 1 minute. Just a minute, please, man.
It has moved from 30 seconds to 1 minute.
I'll give Kaluma all the time.
No, we need to transition the conversation.
But now you cannot cut me when I'm just finishing up my point.
What was the point?
This is the point. I want to show the Kenyan people the connection between borrowing and stealing.
What was the point?
Just one minute.
What was the point?
If you have to connect 10 million households to electricity at that 5,000 Kenya shillings per household, that's around 350 billion. If you are to connect electricity to all the Kenyan homes, that is 10,000 of them, that's around 500 billion. If you are to construct a level 5 hospital in every constituency, that's 290 billion.
James, for how long
if you are
are we
to construct
going
a
through this?
TVET, not worth 100 million, 1 billion Kenya shillings, that's around 290.
For how long,
all that,
for how
James
long
Ma,
are we going
can
through
happen at just a fraction of 3 trillion. This handshake regime has
James,
only overseen borrowing to steal. That is called developmental corruption. That has been done by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his handshake partner.
Never call me
hang on.
The
No, so
studio for heckling. I don't. Yeah, and I'm not at that level.
Okay.
Yes. James, the fact of the matter is the debt ceiling currently is at 9 trillion. So when Ndindi sits here and tells you the debt is at 12 trillion and we are entertaining him on things NTV can tell people the truth on.
I need to respond to this and move on to this.
I want to respond to two things. Ndindi has on 2 occasions talked about this violence. James, do we have a person defined more by violence in our political space than William Ruto? The gentleman joined politics in '92. I don't know where you were. And that was the beginning of Kwe. Remove them from the Rift Valley. 97, Ndindi Nyoro. You know what happened. 2007, you know what happened. And all these years. So for, and you saw what Ruto and his team were saying in the Rift Valley just the other day. Ondoa, Punjab, Sijui what. And Ruto is seated there. There is a reason as to why the epicenter of all violence is always in the Rift Valley. But James, when I speak to record, like the debt before, this second term of Jubilee and the debt currently, these are not things we should debate really. And we have figures being thrown, duping people outside there.
But both of
They're
them
on record. They're on record. Maybe in Parliament, I never want to speak, politics the way it's doing with serious issues which are on record. When we come and a matter like that would be coming forth, I mean, pick it up and say the fact is there. I see, senior stations like yours doing it, do it. Here you are lying, this one is not factual. James, the fact of the matter, and this is the last thing I want to mention, is that most of the debts which were being taken by the first Jubilee administration were being looted. And I know, Ndindi, I can tell you the bitterness of your colleagues who were in the first term. Even for MPs, James, it was about pepper pushing, and you get billions being paid for things you've not done. We can count them. I will keep them because they are not here. But people are genuinely bitter because they were looting. That is the era where you are told an MP has over 12 billion in his account. What business are you doing? You want to tell people you have 12 billion. It was looting and looting. That is the time where a person who took over the reins of power as deputy president without nothing much, accumulated all the wealth you see now being dished endlessly across there. Do you remember SGR was contracted before at the end of the coalition government? Why was it contracted again? And it moved from 200 billion to over 580 billion there. Do you remember Eurobond 1, Eurobond 2? You get what I'm talking about. So when you come and deny, James, things we can see, Ndindi has been not allowing their people to speak. But Ndindi, when were the Mau Mau roads which cut across the entire mountain region done? When was this expressway, we are talking about done? James, when you move across this country, Is there any part of this country you don't see some infrastructure, which you are not seeing in the first term? Now for Ndindi to look at you boldly and tell you there is no development, which development was there in Jubilee first term? In Nyanza, for instance, now we have ports being opened. You have tap waters everywhere in Mount Kenya. You have TVETs. You have health facilities. What has happened in India, I want to tell you, is that the monies which were being borrowed, okay, in the first time they were being stolen. Currently the president, and he confirmed it during the National Delegates Convention, he has no money to develop and go to the Eastlands. Hospitals are being built.
So here's the situation. We have to move this conversation forward. Here's the situation.
Yes.
The president says that more has been done in this term than was done in the first term. All right? The president's on record saying that. The deputy president is on record saying the opposite, that more happened in the first term than in the second term. Well,
you're the judge. You know,
the people are the judge.
This is the people and you as a media.
The people are the
what
judge.
James and the people do you see or do you say? What did you see in Nyanza, in Western Kenya, across Rift Valley, across the coast in the first term?
So Raila has helped the government in the second term.
No, it's not. It's not in the government.
No, has helped the government to achieve.
He has helped the government because he steadied Uhuru's ship.
Okay.
And we are lucky Ruto left, so stealing has reduced. That is what it is.
And you'd say Raila has not helped the government?
James, you know, even I'm sure anyone listening to this debate can tell the kind of people we are debating with. I gave figures, I gave statistics, but these guys are allergic to facts. I told him that this handshake regime has borrowed 7.2 trillion Kenya shillings, even beyond the limits set in parliament. And this is the reason. The government of Kenya, the treasury, has not been bringing out the debt that is accrued by the treasury, by the government of Kenya through guarantees. What are guarantees? Just for Kaluma to understand. He gave an example of the expressway. He gave an example of the expressway. This expressway you see here, because I'm just trying to give the point between the borrowing and the stealing.
And I'm running out of time.
James,
so what?
Ndindi, I can teach you about guarantees.
Hang on.
So don't take a lot of time. Tell us what you want to say.
Hang on.
Yeah.
So,
you know, can I finish my point?
Yes.
The expressway he gave the example with, this expressway you see here, President Kibaki had designed the exact expressway. It was to cost Kenyans around 25 billion Kenya shillings. Currently, we are building the same expressway through a PPP in excess of 80 billion Kenya shillings. This is how now the debt is beyond the one set by Parliament. It is the fact that that PPP, the fallback position of that PPP is the national debt. There are other companies, for example, let's say Kisumu Water. I'm not sure whether there is such a company, but there is Muranga Water and Sewerage Company. There is maybe whichever other water company.
What is the
when
point?
They borrow money, those companies, part of them are called state-owned enterprises. When they borrow money, this money is not reported by central bank as part of the public debt. But the guarantee of these loans, which most of these companies actually never end up paying, is paid by the government of Kenya. Now, this is the point I have.
And then do I teach you what a guarantee is?
This handshake regime, the only thing they have done is to preside over state capture. It is to preside over total thievery and stealing of public resources.
So
if there is time, we can give statistics because we actually know when they steal this money, where it goes. And Kaluma, I'm sure, is abreast of that.
James,
there is only no other achievement of this second term, the handshake regime, other than unsustainable borrowing and stealing of the same borrowing.
James,
to achieve where currently the amount of money we are paying to debts, that is the interest rate. Can you listen to this, man?
Yeah.
The money we are paying as interest to the debts we have accrued as a nation is actually more than the recurrent expenditure of salaries we are paying to public servants. That is the kind of an economy Uhuru Kenyatta and his brother are presiding on.
Okay, final thing here, gentlemen, and we have to leave. We're going to an election in 5 months.
Yeah.
We have an economic situation that is obviously problematic.
Yeah.
Who takes the blame for all this? This is the final thing, and we need to go.
James, how can you ask such a question?
No, we need to go. Final thing.
Which government is ruling? You know,
which government is in office?
James,
supported by Raila Odinga,
James, don't sit people, then you ask them funny questions.
What is the
there is an administration in place, isn't it?
Supported by ODM?
No, it's not supported by ODM.
It's supported by who?
What are you talking about?
No, it's supported by who?
James, today as we speak, the deputy president is somewhere in the US idling with members of parliament, paid by public. And Ndindi will tell you, paid from parliament to be with him there. You know, these pretenses we have of people in office or finding officers only relevant when they steal from them, then they say we are not there. It's not right. Where is Ruto operating from? From state facilities. I sit in the Committee on Administration and National Security, and we budget for everything Ruto is doing in the country. How can you say Ruto is not in government, ODM is supporting government? We remain the minority side of government, and we oppose government when we need to. We support government motions for the good of the public when we need to. This fallacy the media is peddling, that there is some government in which Raila is something that ought to stop. So to answer your question, I'll tell you, the tragedy that we find ourselves in economically is a tragedy that was birthed by the first Jubilee administration, which is continuing to 2022. And that is why we are saying we need a stronger hand, a more stable hand, to steady the ship.
Okay.
Yeah. 30
seconds.
I think it's trivial for us to start talking about the trip by the deputy president, because he's the deputy president of Kenya.
Yes, yeah.
But on the other side, I could not fathom that the same mouth can come here in this show. The same episode, say that the deputy president and the others have been sacked from Jubilee. Consequently, they had actually been sacked before.
Not from the government,
the deputy president.
From Jubilee, not
and
from
the same
government.
Mouth.
Yes.
And the same
mouth,
yes. The same mouth, the same show, yes. The same person is here talking about the responsibility of the ills of this regime. The same person. Okay. I think that kind of conmanship is the one that when it goes to the corporate arena now as ODM, you become conmen of all the partners
you'll grow up in politics. I'll teach you how it is played.
Number one, with wrong figures, wrong dead figures. Then you come here.
You are too young. You are too young
with all due
to
respect,
teach me politics.
With all due respect, this has been exciting. Nyoro, MP Kiharu, and
get another mouth. Two mouths. You want to speak
Peter Kaluma, former town MP. Gentlemen, I have...
No, I'll educate Ndindi about how government
works. Thank you very much. We do this every Tuesday on this program.